I'm Jud Ferguson. This is my 1967 Harley Davidson Shovelhead.
All right, Jud, so tell me, what's the story behind you getting this motorcycle?
Well, I had owned a mid-70s cone shovel, and it was a couple of versions as far as a chopper goes. And then I have had this 1958 panhead for a handful of years. And the ultimate goal for everybody, I think, is to own a knucklehead, right? But I'm not rich enough to have knucklehead money yet. So the next logical thing for me is I really wanted a 60s shovelhead. And if you know anything about generator shovels, they were only built from 1966 to 1969. And we have a local guy down the street that's a buddy of mine. And I would go down there, buy some parts, talk to him, and I'm like, hey, if you know anybody that's got a generator shovelhead for sale, let me know. He's like, yeah, okay, and that went on for probably 6 months. I'd go in there, same thing, buy some parts. Hey, Joe, I'm still looking for a generator shovelhead. So one day I walk in, and I'm like, I'm still looking for a generator shovelhead. And he kind of looks at me, and he's like, all right, come back here. I got something to show you. So we walk behind his counter into his little back room, and there is the ugliest generator shovel chopper sitting in front of me. And Bill and Joe, I'm sorry, I know it was your buddy's bike, but the thing was hideous. And I asked him if it was for sale, and it was. And it was a local guy that had owned it and had passed away, which when I buy bikes, I like to buy things that are local, and also it's even better if they have a story behind it. This one didn't have too much of a story, but the fact that he was friends with Bill, who was Joe's head mechanic at the time, and Joe, they felt good about selling me the bike, and I was stoked to own it. So, after a little bit, we struck a deal, and I came home with the bike and tore it all apart and started collecting bits and pieces of the way that I wanted to build it. But I ended up making it a swing arm chopper, which I rode for about 2 or 3 months, and just wasn't too crazy about it. So I started looking at old Easy Riders, because I have a ton of those, and a handful of good Japanese chopper magazines, to just kind of get ideas for the kind of look. And it's not like the complete bike is like I'm trying to steal it from someone. It may be like a front end, that I like off of this bike, but I like this gas tank that's on this other bike or whatever. And so anyway, when I started getting ideas and putting it together, I knew I wanted it to have a little bit more of a chopper look to it. And I don't mean long bike. I just mean if you look here, there's a whole lot more room in the top of the head to the frames and the legs and the backbone. And so I got this Paco chopper frame, and they call it that because it's got this gusset there, whatever. And I wanted the front end to be a little bit longer than stock, but not too much. And, if you look at my choppers, I obviously very much like the Wassel gas tanks. Got one on this guy, got one on that guy. But I wanted it to be pretty narrow. So we went with these narrow trees. And the first spool wheel that I bought, these trees are so narrow, it wouldn't even fit in between the trees. So I had to get another one. And then it's got an 18-inch rear wheel on the back with a chrome Wassel fender, because once again, I'm a creature of habit, and I like what I like. My 58 has kind of the same setup on it. But, I just wanted it kind of high and tight, because the majority of the bikes that I own and have built are relatively stock, like stock length front end, kind of normal bars. So I had these guys, the Vitsy boys, I think they're in Bismarck, made these risers for me, and then just some like dirt bike style handlebars, so that I could be up and kind of tight in the cockpit, and then mid pegs, which are pushed as far forward as you can on the frame because I have longer legs, so I'm not scrunched up underneath me. It's jockey shift, obviously kickstart only, mechanical rear brake, and it's about an 89 cubic inch motor, so it's pretty fast for what it is. I don't know. I mean, I like everything about it, My buddy Andy in Little Rock at Howland Custom Cycles helped me out a lot, with the fabrication, and, would tell me when I was being stupid, when I wanted to do something that I shouldn't do, which was always helpful. Maybe at the time I didn't think so, but, you get older and you learn. Yeah, there's nothing about this bike that I don't like. The thing I like the most about it is it starts and runs and stops. And I've not had too many issues out of it. It's obviously, you can tell it's a rider. There's some things I need to do to it. I need to replace the kicker bushing because that's leaking pretty bad now. But it's been in this form for about 5 years. And all I do is service it about every 3 months and ride it.
Okay, so what's a good riding story that just comes to the front of your head whenever you think of this bike? Something that's very prominent.
Oh man, there's a few. So putting down miles with all my buddies that live around here. Like I said, I think before, this is kind of, for the last 4 or 5 years, this has been my daily rider. We'll go on rides, go into Oklahoma, ride up into Missouri, spend all day, just riding choppers with your buddies, and, knock on wood, this one hasn't let me down too much yet. However, there have been a couple of situations. We do a show here in Fayetteville every October usually, and the day before the show we have a big ride. So this last one, about 25 or 30 of us went out, and we all rode from here to Eureka Springs, which is a small town about an hour northeast of here, if you don't know. Super sick riding. We had a great time. Everybody made it there. We had a few drinks at the biker bar, and we start heading back, and that's when people start to fall off, right? Like somebody shredded a belt, and then another guy's bike just died while riding down the highway. And so I am typically the road captain, so it takes a minute for people to catch up to me to be like, hey, so-and-so, whatever. So I have to make sure that everybody else that's headed back to town has somebody that can get them back if they don't know, the directions or whatever. So I backtrack 2 or 3 miles, and it's a friend of mine's panhead, and, oh no, I'm sorry, let me back up. The first guy, who shredded pretty much half of his belt, somehow managed to get it to where it was back on, and he rode, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he rode all the way back from basically halfway between here and Eureka with a half shredded belt. So then, that's cool, they get started. We make it a couple of more miles down the road. All of a sudden, somebody else is like, hey, so-and-so's panhead isn't running. So I turn around, I make sure everybody else knows where they're going. And the sun's starting to kind of go down at this point. So I get back to my buddy Miles, and I can't remember the first issue, but they get it running by the time I get back, and we make it probably a quarter mile, and his bike quits running again. So at this point, it's about dusk. Everybody else is headed back to Fayetteville, and so I'm helping Miles get his bike running. I'm supposed to be at the pre-party for the show that is happening, and I'm on the side of the road. It's getting dark, whatever. And our friend Alyssa from Texas, she was borrowing a buddy's lowrider because her Shovelhead wouldn't start because, you know, it's fucking troubleheads for you. And we get Miles's bike running again, and I fire my bike up, and we get back on the road, and I'm riding, and I notice that it's getting harder and harder for me to see. And my headlight is just getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until probably about 2 or 3 miles from where we had just left, I've got no headlight. And my buddy Miles's panhead, his headlight is basically like a freaking candle, you know. So luckily for us, the bike that our friend Alyssa was on had a brand new super bright LED bulb. So she kind of stayed like right in between the two of us and right behind us. And we rode, probably a good 30 miles back into town. I didn't have a headlight. Miles's bike was running like shit. And thankfully she was there to get us back in. So, you know, I didn't think too much of it. And my bike was kind of running, kind of funky. And, you know, when you ride these things long enough and you spend enough time on them, you can feel just as much as you can hear if something is off when your bike is running. So I got it to the show. That next week I got it up on my table and, you know, just thought it was the headlight switch, thought it was the bulb, thought it was the coil, maybe I had a bad battery, and I go through all of that stuff and everything's all good. And so I was like, well, I'll pull the generator off because maybe my generator is not, it's not being a generator, you know, it's not charging the system. So I pull the generator off, and on the inside you can look, and there's an idler gear that your generator gear runs, they run together, and that's what powers your generator. And I go to touch it, and when I do, it moves about 1/4 of an inch forward. And I thought, oh shit, that's not good. So I pull the push rods off, take the cam chest off, and when I pull that idler gear out, it has a brass bushing that fits in there, and there is no brass bushing. It's completely gone. It had about, if you shifted it forward towards the front of the cam cover, you could move it about 1/4 of an inch, which isn't good. And the teeth on the idler gear were super sharp and all chewed up. And what had happened is somehow that bushing disintegrated, which I did find it later in a whole bunch of brass shavings in my oil tank when I went to clean it out. But that idler gear would engage for a bit, and then it would disengage because it had all that free play. So I managed to get a OEM Harley idler gear, which if you run these old bikes, if you can get OEM Harley parts, get them. Aftermarket, it's easy to get, but man, they're garbage. But, you know, I mean, if you can't get a hold of them, you know, it is what it is. But that's about the only time. I've had some other weird little electrical gremlins in it that the bike would die. I'd be just riding down the road in third gear or something, and the bike would just die, and I'd pull over. All the connections are good. You know, I keep a multimeter with my tools and stuff just to make sure everything is on the up and up, and it was, and then I'll wait 10 minutes and fire it back up, and no issues. So the ghost in the machine, I suppose.
But do you plan on modifying anything about it, changing the gas tank, the paint, anything at all?
I don't know. I don't know, because when you finish a bike, I don't ever look at it and I'm like, that's it, that's perfect. Like, there's not a thing I would change. Because over the years, there are some things that I would change, but I don't know. It's one of those situations where if it's running and riding, and like, you know, this bike also, the way that we built it, it's designed to fit me. You know, like what I was saying before with the mid pegs. Typically, mid pegs are, and for people who don't know, these are mid pegs here. And what chopper guys would do was just mount these pegs to the floorboard tabs on Harley frames back in the day. Well, this one didn't have them. I bought some aftermarket ones and welded them to the frame, but normally they're back here. So like I was saying before, they're pushed forward pretty far so that I can ride it long distances and I'm not like just real huddled up and uncomfortable. I mean, I just recently got back from Texas Fandango, which is a swap meet and show and chopper drags. It's an amazing show that me and my dad go to every year since the beginning. And the swap meet's really great. And I bought a couple of panhead top trees. And they've got some extended panhead risers on them. And I thought it might be cool to put those panhead risers on here because they're a little bit shorter. I think these are like 10 inches tall, and I think those panhead ones are 8. But do a 4-inch kind of dirt bike style bar because these are 2-inch. So essentially it would be in the same spot, but it would just kind of change up the look a little bit, but I probably won't. I like the way everything looks on this bike, you know. The drag pipes, you know, we did the drag pipes to where the front exhaust on the bottom extends out a little bit further than the rear, which I think is neat because a lot of times it's, you know, with drag pipes like that, it's typically, you know, the rear exhaust is a little bit longer. Yeah, I don't know. I think everything's real cool on this bike. And I know this bike really well. There's, you know, from the engine to the transmission to, you know, just doing a little bit of everything on this bike, which I think is really important when you own an old motorcycle. Whether it's a stock bike, a chopper, whatever, like when it's in a rigid frame, you know, no rear suspension, if you've got, you know, I mean, even with springers, there's a little bit of cushion. There's some good cushion with these later, you know, what they considered the Hydra glides. I mean, this is not a Hydra glide, but the hydraulic front suspension. You know, if you ride this thing and you ride it a lot, shit rattles loose. You know, metal bends only so many times before it breaks, so you have to replace things. You gotta, you know, refabricate stuff, but like I said, with this one, I've not had too many issues out of. I think if I changed anything, I might redo the sissy bar on it, just so it's a little bit tighter, so it's not so kind of bow-legged, but I don't know. You know, it was built to look tough, ride tough, and hopefully it makes me look tough. I don't know if it does, but whatever.
So you want to start this thing? Let us know what it sounds like.
Yeah, let's, it's the bike is cold, so this bike does not like to start when it's cold, like a lot of kickstart-only Harleys. Wait, let's make sure it's got gas in it before we do anything. Over here killing myself. Oh yeah, we got some gas. This one likes a lot of gas. We'll see what happens here. Last kick every time.
Hell yeah.